everybody, welcome back to I am, and as always, this is your girl, Nikki Beware. So, some of you may have noticed that a new episode hasn't dropped in a while, and I apologize for that. As I've explained to a couple of people already, I had an issue with the device that I was using and I lost everything. All of my notes, articles, pictures, music, all of it. Luckily, I was able to get the issue fixed and now I can pick back up where I left off. But y'all, when I last did an episode, I had between maybe 70 to 90 subscribers and now I have over 400. I know that's not a lot, but it's a lot to me and I can't thank y'all enough for watching. And please continue to let me know how I'm doing. All criticisms are welcomed, and if you have a case you would like me to look into, just let me know. You can email me at thenikkyware@yahoo.com, or you can find me on Facebook by searching author Nikki B. Ware. Once again, thank y'all so much. All right, now that that's out of the way, today's episode will be an international one about one man and one woman, both people of color, who weren't given the justice they deserved. As much as we'd like to think that we're in our own little bubble here in the United States and that what happens to us couldn't possibly be happening to our fellow brothers and sisters across the pond, well, we're wrong. The sad truth is it does happen, and we should be just as outraged about the injustices over there as we are about the injustices here. So these are the stories of Richard Okorgi and Blessing Olugose. Richard Okorgi was born on November 4th, 2001 to Evidence Joel. Not much is public record about the rest of his family, but what is public is the love Evidence had for her son. Her love was especially exemplified since Richard was living with a disease called sickle cell anemia. First, let's begin with what healthy blood cells look like. They're round, smooth, and can easily pass through blood vessels carrying oxygen throughout the body. For someone with sickle cell anemia, their blood cells are odd-shaped, more curved, and sickle-like, hence the name. These cells have a tendency to clump up and prevent the other healthy blood cells from carrying oxygen to other parts of the body. This can often leave the person affected by this disease tired and lethargic. It also causes sharp, stabbing, and throbbing pains that some have described as being worse than labor. The pain can be isolated to just one part of the body, or it can affect several parts at once, lasting anywhere from a few hours to a few weeks at a time. I'm sure I'm not describing this disease in a way that showcases the seriousness of it, but I've made sure to include several articles about it if you'd like to look it up yourself. Just from the little I've learned about it, I understand why Evidence was so protective of her son, especially during the height of COVID. COVID threw everyone for a loop, and no one was prepared for how much our lives would change in just a short amount of time. Everyone was struggling to cope with all the changes, and Richard was no different. Because of his illness, the only time he would leave home was to get a blood transfusion from the hospital. So it was a shock to all who knew him when he went missing. On March 22nd, 2021, the 19-year-old college student decided to get out of the house. Maybe it was restlessness and the feeling of being closed off from the world, or maybe he was just meeting someone. Either way, he left his home in Ladbroke Grove, Kensington. Later that night, around 8:40 p.m., he was spotted walking in West London. 20 minutes later, his mother arrived home from her nursing shift and began cooking dinner. Once done, she went to let him know that it was time to eat, but when she knocked on his bedroom door several times and called out to him, she didn't get a response. And when she tried the door handle, the door was locked. With no key to the room, Evidence had no choice but to call a locksmith to gain access. Once inside, she discovered that her son wasn't there, but his wallet, bank card, and bus pass was left behind. She already had a feeling that something was amiss, and she tried to shake it off. But when she noticed that all of his stuff was still there and he was nowhere to be found, her worry heightened even more. It's not clear whether evidence called to report him missing then or if she called around to some of his friends first. However, when she did go to the police, she was told, and I quote, "If you can't find your son, how do you expect us to?" To say that she was appalled and in disbelief would be an understatement, and she believes wholeheartedly that the disregard and disrespect she was shown by the Metropolitan Police Department was due to the fact that her son was black. And you know what? I agree with her. Not only did they disregard her concern, but when he was finally classified as a missing person, they failed to disclose his illness with the assumption that sickle cell anemia was just like anemia and it was no cause for concern. For that reason, he was classified as low risk. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, anemia can be just as dangerous, especially to someone in a stressful or dire situation. So that excuse was a lame attempt to cover up their mishandling of this case. And who knows, had the Met Police acted sooner, maybe the outcome would be different. But unfortunately, almost 2 weeks later, Richard Okorgi's body was found floating in a lake in Epping Forest. From the moment evidence heard the news that her son's body had been found, she suspected foul play. It was baffling to her that not only was he away from home, but he also didn't have any essential personal belongings, and he was in a part of the city that he was unfamiliar with. This added further credence to the idea that he may have been meeting with someone and was met with foul play. However, according to the coroner's report, that may or may not have been the case because Richard's cause of death was ruled inconclusive. How can that be, you ask? Well, upon examination, it was determined that there were no obvious signs of trauma or assault, which led the police to believe that this was a suicide. But the coroner just couldn't make that determination. Another thing that seems weird to me is that one of Richard's female friends began receiving prank phone calls from random numbers claiming to have seen him or that they found his body. All of this took place shortly before he was actually found. Now, to me, it seems that someone or several people were taunting her and maybe knew more about what really happened. And yes, this could have just been some cruel joke, but I truly believe that foul play was involved, and sadly, because of the skin Richard was born in, we may never know the truth of what really happened to him. The lack of information out there about this case is frustrating, but even with the few details that are available, things just aren't adding up. I mean, where was he going? Why was he in an unfamiliar area? Why did he leave his ID and bank card behind? Was he meeting someone? There are just way too many questions left unanswered, and the police there don't seem to care very much. And that's something us people of color know all too well here in America. Blessing Olusegun, born June 3rd, 1999, moved with her mom, Esther Abe, and other family members from Ekiti State, Nigeria to Greenwich, London. While living in Nigeria, Blessing was a victim of sexual assault. I was unable to find out exactly how old she was when this occurred, but she was not yet a teenager. I also tried to find out if this was the reason behind her move to London, but it doesn't seem likely. There aren't a lot of articles detailing her assault, but one of the articles mentioned that she kept it a secret for many years, only coming forward with the truth once she was older. Because of this traumatic experience, her mental state was greatly affected. She often had bouts of depression and even tried to self-harm. Esther, being the amazing mom that she is, supported her daughter through all of her struggles and gave as much care and attention to Blessing that she could. It was this love and care that pulled Blessing out of her darkness, and once out, Blessing began to flourish. She had ambitions to be her own boss, and she was on a path to make that happen, and her family was just as excited as she was. No one in a million years would have made them believe that all of Blessing's dreams wouldn't come true, But unfortunately, life had other plans. Almost 2 weeks into September of 2020, Blessing, now a 21-year-old business student, started a work placement program in Bexhill in East Sussex, where she would be taking care of elderly patients who suffered from dementia. Bexhill was about an hour and 30 minutes away from where she lived in Greenwich, so it's doubtful that she was familiar with the area or really knew anyone prior to getting this job. Now, obviously, this is purely speculative on my part, but with coronavirus raging in the UK at this time and lockdown still being in place, I can't imagine that she had much time or freedom to get to know the area like that. Don't worry, me mentioning this will become relevant later on. But as far as family and friends were concerned, everything was going according to plan. I mean, Blessing only took this job as a way to earn and save money to fulfill her dream. But sadly, only a week later, those plans came to a sudden halt. Blessing's movements on the night of September 18, 2020 are somewhat of a mystery. Sometime after midnight, Blessing left her patient's home stating in a text message to her friend Christiana that she wanted to go for a walk. She was then captured on CCTV footage around 1 a.m. walking towards Glyn Gap Beach. At 1:18 a.m., she sent another text saying, "Never mind." At 1:24 a.m., she sent an "I love you" text to her mother and then sent her the code to her bank card. While this may look telling, Blessing had already made plans to do this since her mother was supposed to use her bank card later on that day. Also, at some point during the early hours of the morning, Blessing was on the phone with her boyfriend because she didn't want to feel alone while walking. I mean, maybe she had a feeling that something was going to happen, and if she did, she was right. At 6:20 a.m., just 5 short hours after the last message was sent, Blessing was found unresponsive on that same beach she was seen walking toward by a dog walker. Shortly after this, Esther was notified that her daughter was deceased, and what she goes through next made losing her daughter that much worse. When Esther arrived on the scene the next day, she wasn't sure what she was looking at. There was no police tape or anything blocking the area to ensure that nothing got contaminated. Without specifically being told, you'd never know that something bad had happened there. Confused, Esther began asking the locals about what they had seen. Shockingly, none of them even knew that a body had been found on the beach the day before. So with no luck there, she contacted an officer for help in finding the exact area where Blessing was found. Instead, he sent an email with a map, but refused to take her there after she asked. Because the police were so quick to decide that there was no foul play involved and that Blessing's death was likely caused by an accidental drowning or suicide, not only did they fail to secure the perimeters, they also limited the search area to just the area where Blessing's body was found. No potential witnesses were questioned, and only one CCTV footage was viewed, even though Esther pointed out that there were several along the route that Blessing took. The police's excuse was that there was only one in that area, but this was clearly a lie. Also, it was discovered that Blessing's nails had been chipped down and that her wig was missing. And according to family and friends, Blessing never went anywhere without her hair done. Could the missing wig and chipped nails be an indication of foul play, or can this all be explained away? A lifeguard familiar with this beach provided a simple yet plausible explanation. The area in which Blessing was found was an area that experienced tides. So, let me set the scene for you. Blessing is walking along the beach in her slippers and with her cell phone in her hand. She decides to sit down for a bit and look out at the ocean. She takes her slippers off and puts them and her phone beside her. Being unable to see, she doesn't notice a tide coming through. The sand begins to shift underneath her and she begins to be carried out towards the sea. She grabs for the nearest thing to her, the sand, but it doesn't work. it slips through her fingers. She gets more and more desperate because not only is she afraid, she can't swim. So she claws and claws to no avail. Somewhere in the struggle, the sea washes over her and takes her wig along with it. Unable to fight anymore, Blessing succumbs to the sea and drowns. Sounds totally possible, right? Except, why would someone who asked two separate people to stay on the phone with her during her walk out of safety concerns not have her phone in her hand? Also, why was she carried away but not her cell phone nor her slippers? As a matter of fact, her things were 300 meters away from where her body was found. Furthermore, for someone who was afraid of the ocean and didn't know how to swim, why would she sit so close? Could it really be as simple as someone not knowing the area, accidentally putting themselves in a dangerous situation? These are all questions that haven't been answered, and I don't think they ever will be. Nevertheless, in March of 2022, her death was ruled accidental drowning, although police seem to lean more towards suicide since they know all about her mental health struggles. With her being a black woman, on top of her known mental health issues, is most likely why her death was so quickly assessed as non-suspicious. As much as the Metropolitan Police have stated that their investigation was thorough, I'm not convinced that it was. I don't know if it was racism, bias, or complete incompetence, but I don't believe that justice was served here. Now, can I say without a shadow of a doubt that something sinister happened? No, I can't. But there's an inkling in my gut telling me that something more is going on here. Two bodies. Two young black students found within a year of each other, both involving bodies of water, and both died under suspicions of suicide. You know, I looked up the statistics of suicide by drowning, and there wasn't much I could find. That way of suicide is so rare that there aren't many studies out there about it, and the ones that are over 20 years old. Now, take from that what you will, but I don't believe for a second that either of these deaths were by suicide, and I don't care what anyone says. Accidental? Perhaps, but both of these cases have way too many holes in them for me to lean that way. Now, maybe it's my passion for true crime that has me seeing crimes where there are none, or maybe my gut instinct is right on the money, and all it will take is a little more digging to find out what really happened to Richard and Blessing. Hopefully, one day, the truth will come to light. I have attached several articles of both cases in the show's description for those of you who want to read more. There's not a whole lot out there, and most articles say the same things, but maybe they'll provide more clarity if you need it. But y'all, let me know what y'all think. Suicide, accidental, or murder? All right, so before I get out of here, I want to shed some light on a young lady who went missing back in 2011. She's not connected to this case at all, but she is the niece of one of my subscribers, and their family is understandably heartbroken about her disappearance. I want so badly to do a case on her, but this poster on the Charlie Project is literally the only thing I can find on her. So y'all, please do me a favor and take a good look at her. See if you may have seen her and share her picture with as many people as you can. Her name is Shamika Jones, and she was last seen on Mariners Cove Court in Tampa, Florida around 2 p.m. on the day of August 2nd, 2011. She was 29 when she went missing, and she would have recently turned 41. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'2" and weighed around 130 pounds. She had black hair, brown eyes, and at the time, her hair was styled in short braids. She often goes by her middle name, Chantel. If you know anything or think you know anything about Shamika, please reach out to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office at 813-247-8703. You never know what evil lurks behind you, so be vigilant and don't be afraid to cause a scene. Anything to ensure that you make it home safely. As always, this is hashtag I am. Be blessed and stay safe.